It seemed like a normal Tinder date, but as the evening unfolded, it became clear that something was very wrong with Tracy, something that made me feel like I was trapped in my own home. When I found myself newly single, I thought the peace of living alone would be a relief after my 2-year relationship ended. But after a few months, loneliness crept in, and I was back to swiping on dating apps, desperately seeking a distraction. Then I matched with Tracy on Tinder. She seemed friendly at first, but our conversations quickly faded, with her only watching my stories. It felt all too familiar, something I used to brush off in college. But now, in my late 20s, it felt more unsettling, like an immature distraction from the reality of being alone. One cold December evening, I posted something on my Snap about Christmas. To my surprise, Tracy commented, rekindling our conversation. She suggested we decorate my tree together, an idea I found odd, but I agreed. After all, it would be nice to have some company. I told her to come over at 9 p.m. As the hour drew near, I rushed around my house, setting everything up. I bought wine, vacuumed, and prepared for what I thought would be a festive evening. But when Tracy arrived, I was immediately struck by how off-putting she seemed. She was taller than me, at least 6 feet, and reeked of cheap perfume, masking a faint but noticeable odor. We sat on the couch, her leg brushing mine uncomfortably. It was as if she was intentionally trying to invade my space. Despite offering her wine to break the tension, she knocked over a glass of red wine onto my light blue couch. I wanted to scream, but I just smiled and cleaned it up, trying to dismiss my growing unease. When it came time to set up the tree, I suggested getting the ornaments from the crawl space. As I went downstairs to retrieve the bins, I began to feel dizzy. The wine had hit me harder than expected, but it felt strange, almost too much for the small amount I'd drunk. By the time I made it back upstairs, Tracy was nowhere to be found. I called out to her, but the house was eerily silent. It didn't make sense. Where did she go? I began searching, my head spinning. I checked every room, but she was gone. My phone buzzed with a message from her, but she didn't open my Snap. Then, everything went black. When I woke up, it was pitch black, the TV off, and no sign of Tracy. But something felt wrong. The air was thick with an unnatural heaviness. And then I saw it. In the faint glow of my phone screen, a tall figure stood at the edge of the room. My heart froze in my chest. I barely managed to say her name. Tracy? But she didn't answer. She turned toward the stairs, sprinting down them with an unsettling speed, the sound of her footsteps echoing. I tried to move, but my limbs felt weak and unresponsive, as though I was trapped in my own body. By the time I gained control, the front door slammed. Tracy had left, but something was off. My medicine, my vitamins, even my prescription drugs, all gone. But she hadn't taken anything valuable. She had only taken what she was desperate for. A quick look outside confirmed something else. There had been no car in sight when she arrived. I called the police and told them everything I could, but Tracy's true identity remained a mystery. In my gut, I knew the truth. She wasn't who she said she was. She wasn't just a quirky woman. She was someone desperate, lost, and possibly dangerous. And the worst part, I was left questioning if I had been drugged. Santa Claus doesn't visit Jewish kids. That's what I told him. But the way his smile disappeared and his voice darkened told me this wasn't about Christmas. This was about something far worse. It was Christmas Eve, 1997. For most kids, it's a magical night, but for my sister and me, it was just another quiet evening. Being Jewish, we didn't celebrate Christmas, and our dad, a doctor, was working late at the hospital. That left the two of us alone, apart from our mom, who spent most evenings passed out from drinking. At just 7 years old, I didn't fully understand her alcoholism, only that she was unreachable when it mattered most. My sister and I were in the living room watching TV when we heard a knock at the door. Curious, I walked over and peeked through the glass panels. A man stood there dressed as Santa Claus, holding a large bag slung over his shoulder. His smile was wide, almost too wide, and his wave felt rehearsed, like he'd practiced it 100 times before. "Hey there, kiddo," he said, his voice muffled through the door. "It's me, Santa. Let me in, and I'll give you your presents." I didn't open the door. Instead, I stepped closer, eyeing him suspiciously. "Santa isn't real," I said firmly, "and even if he was, he wouldn't visit Jewish kids." His smile faltered, replaced by a flash of irritation. "Of course I'm real," he insisted. "This year, I'm visiting everyone, including Jewish kids. I've got presents for you and your sister. Just open the door." Something about his voice chilled me. It wasn't playful or warm. It was demanding. I turned and whispered to my sister to call 911. As she fumbled with the phone, the man's tone grew darker. "Let me in!" he barked, his fist pounding on the door. My sister panicked as the operator dismissed her, thinking it was a child's prank. I felt a wave of fear like I'd never experienced before. The man didn't leave. Minutes later, he was back, pounding on the door with even more force. "I know the cops aren't coming," he sneered. "Let me in, or you'll regret it." My sister was crying now, running upstairs to wake Mom, but I knew she wouldn't wake up. In that moment, I remembered the candles we kept for our menorah. I grabbed a handful and lit them, holding them beneath the smoke detector. The alarm blared to life, and I threw the candles aside, praying the fire department would come. What happened next still haunts me. Instead of running, the man smiled, almost as if he'd been waiting for the alarm. When the firefighters arrived, he ran to them, claiming to be our dad. "I'm Santa Claus," he said, his voice calm and convincing. "I locked myself out while surprising my kids. Please break the door down to help them." The firefighters hesitated, ready to smash the door in. My sister and I screamed, pressing ourselves against the door, begging them to stop. "He's not our dad," we cried. "Our dad's at the hospital. He's lying." One firefighter paused, looking at the kippah on my head and the menorah on the table behind me. Slowly, his expression shifted. "If you're their father," he asked the man, "why would Santa visit a Jewish home?" The man stammered, his story falling apart. The firefighters grabbed him, pinning him to the ground until the police arrived. Even as they hauled him away, he glared at us through the glass, his eyes filled with something I still can't describe, a mix of rage and something darker. That night, my dad came home furious at my mom for being passed out but grateful we were safe. And me? I couldn't stop thinking about what might have happened if I'd opened that door. To this day, I believe being Jewish saved us. Whoever that man was, he wasn't here to spread holiday cheer. A cozy cabin in the woods, a snowstorm, and the promise of a festive escape, until a stranger appeared at the door. What began as a Christmas getaway became a chilling game of survival. In December 2022, my girlfriend Charlotte and I decided to escape the bustle of the city and spend Christmas in the Pocono Mountains. We rented a charming Airbnb, a secluded cabin surrounded by woods, decorated with lights and festive ornaments. The pictures promised a cozy retreat, complete with a hot tub on the deck and a crackling fireplace. It sounded like the perfect place to unwind. The drive was peaceful, snowflakes dusting the road as we made our way to the cabin. By the time we arrived, the snowstorm had begun. The cabin was just as picturesque as the photos. A glowing Christmas tree in the corner, stockings hanging from the walls, and the unmistakable scent of wood smoke. It felt magical. We settled in, bringing our bags inside and turning on the lights. There was an upstairs loft with a pool table, a large living room, and a dark, cold basement that seemed more like a storage area than part of the home. It was perfect. At least it seemed that way. Not long after we arrived, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find a man standing on the porch. He looked to be in his late 40s, wearing a tattered jacket and gray sweatpants, his smile unsettlingly wide. "How are you folks doing?" he asked casually. "Good," I replied hesitantly. "Are you the host?" He nodded. "I run this place with my brother. If you need anything, I live just up the road." I thanked him, but something felt off. He mentioned Charlotte, even though she hadn't come to the door. I brushed it off, assuming the actual host must have told him about us. But his smile lingered too long, his eyes studying me like he was trying to memorize my face. Later that evening, we prepared dinner and cozied up to watch the Polar Express. The storm outside intensified, the snow piling against the windows. Afterward, we decided to try the hot tub. Sitting in the steaming water, watching the snow fall, felt like the ultimate escape, until the bubbles stopped. Then we heard it. Footsteps crunching in the snow. They were slow, deliberate, moving around the side of the house. Charlotte and I froze, listening as they grew fainter, then stopped. I tried to convince myself it was just an animal, but deep down, I knew the sound was unmistakably human. Shaken, we went inside and tried to forget about it. But that night, just as we were falling asleep, a loud bang shattered the silence. Someone was pounding on the front door with forceful, angry blows. Charlotte clung to me, begging me not to get up. I locked the bedroom door instead, heart racing as the banging continued. Then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The next morning, I messaged the Airbnb host, Mike, about the water heater issue and the knocks. His response was frustratingly casual.